you know, I just licensed a beat to some dudes in Oklahoma, you know what I mean? Like just out of nowhere. So I think this is the future, and I think that we are the ones that shape it.
Peace, what's going down? It's DJ Payne 1 for BeatStars.com with a very special guest today, Nastee, who is newly joined to BeatStars, but he is no stranger to the music business. What's going down, sir?
Peace, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. You have a hell of a resume, especially as an engineer, but also as a producer. You've mixed hip-hop classics.
Yeah.
We'll talk about those, hopefully. You know, from Mobb Deep's Quiet Storm to Joey Badass Devastated, which I see you have the plaque for in the background, because that did go platinum. Congratulations.
Dang, good looks, good looks.
What came first for you as a professional musician? Was it the production? Was it the engineering?
Honestly, it was DJing. I started DJing, and then that led to production, which led to engineering. And engineering was always just more of a hustle for me. I never really was like, oh, I'm going to be an engineer. It just was like, oh, I'm good at this. Oh, wow, they pay me. Oh, wow. Now I'm doing bigger projects. Now I'm working on this.
But clearly it evolved from a hustle to an art form for you as well, right?
For sure. I tell people all the time that me and Duro were the first to say, yo, we're hip hop engineers. We don't, I could mix and record jazz or whatever, rock, whatever. But especially in the 90s, it wasn't like a known thing of how to engineer and produce hip hop.
His name came up a lot in the 90s on all, you know, DJ Clue.
He's the man. Yeah. He's the man. And I can remember literally recording and tracking in the cutting room, and then literally bringing him the 2-inch tape next door at there was a place called Platinum Island, and I'd record him, like I'd be in one studio recording him, bring it right next door, and he'd mix it. So we were the first to have those conversations of like, yo, damn, we're hip hop engineers, fam. Like, it's not just engineer, oh, I was a rock dude, now I do hip hop because it's so popular. Like, nah, I've been hip hop the whole time, and was the first to really proclaim that.
I think a lot of people who aren't deep into the engineering world don't understand the subtle differences between genres and that cultural connection to a certain type of music that makes you the best engineer at that sound.
Facts.
Engineering for you, I mean, becoming an award-winning engineer, was that a matter of mostly experience? Did you have formal training? Were you learning from predecessors?
I literally learned from some dudes that showed me how to engineer in like a basement studio in Brooklyn. It was a basement studio that was official, had a 2-inch tape, which back then that meant you had the top level recording if you had a 2-inch tape. And they basically just showed me the very basics of it. I started as an intern there. I was actually producing a demo there for a dude that was going to be actually the first artist signed to Blunt Records, which was where Mike Geronimo started. And we were doing this demo, and I told the dude, hey, man, give me a job. And they were like, well, there's no job, but you could intern. I didn't know intern meant slavery, but I did it. And then I called a meeting like, yo, I can't be your slave, but I want to learn this stuff. So teach me. And I brought them, and my deal was I said, I'll bring you clients. And they were like, all right. And incidentally, the first client I brought them was DJ Spinner. He did one of his first demos there. And as soon as they made some money with me, they showed me everything. And from there, I was doing it. I did that for like 6 months. Learned the basics, recording techniques. At the time, MIDI was still like you had to learn MIDI. And then I just learned it from there. And then before I knew it, they were hiring me people were hiring me to engineer. And I was like, wow, this is actually a hustle that could work.
So fast forward way into the future, because this is definitely a change of pace. How did you become the head A&R at Pro Era?
Basically, I started, I wasn't really engineering as much around like 2009, 2010, just for people I knew. And I got caught out there like talking to someone and complaining about New York hip hop right around 2010. And basically, long story short, I told some people that knew Joey, hey, I'd come out engineering retirement to help them because they're from New York. They sound like they're from New York. They sound like they love rhymes and beats. And so through a mutual friend, my man Static Selector, I started mixing for Joey.
Shout out Static Selector.
Yeah, that's my guy. Basically, we mixed Before the Money together. And that introed me to Joey and Pro Era crew. And then me and Joey hit it off literally like right away. So I offered it to them like, yo, fam, maybe I could engineer, but more like an engineer A&R. and that's how it kind of started. And now it's more like I just A&R. I do some mixing here and there. I recorded all of All American Badass and mixed Devastated. Currently mixing Desi Hines and the Pro Era album. It's more of a development through time with him and him realizing like, wow, you have a lot of other ideas that aren't technical ideas, not, you know, studio ideas. So he's pretty much brought me on as a producer and as an A&R.
The term A&R is one of those lost arts, maybe a misunderstood concept. So to you, what should an A&R's role be at a label?
Well, the old school A&R is the guy that goes and finds the talent and figures out the lane for it at the label, and is the link between the artist and the label. Sort of like a manager, but he works for the label. It doesn't work for the artist. Nowadays, I think it's got to evolve. I think that an A&R, he's going to find talent and be the link, but also he's got to have all the knowledge. In my opinion, he has to have all the knowledge, like pretty much how engineering works. Maybe you're not an engineer, but you understand all the processes. You know, basically the A&R man is the guy that's going to find the talent and get the album done. So if he's going to do that, to me, I feel like he needs to know all the things that are comprised of making an album. So it's not just about finding talent and being able to manage it with the label. It's about, to me, it's about all of it.
It's especially crazy being an A&R in this era, because this is the era of viral social media stars, right? So public figures who they create huge fan bases online and then get picked up by a label once they're already established. So the label doesn't really have to invest time or money into their development and their marketing, right? So how has this new method of finding talent, you know, people that are already famous, affected, you know, the perceived role of an A&R?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, in a way, like twisted it around. It's a difficult situation to be in because artist development, a label has no interest in that at this point. It's like develop yourself and then come to us with a star, basically. But I'm starting to see that change. It's not really, the big labels aren't really into like artist development as much as they're more into finding a label like Pro Era Records. And that's kind of their artist development in a sense, like bring us the artist through your label. That's what I see more happening. The labels finally have figured out that they kind of don't know anything about the new waves. They used to always try to be involved and try to say, you know, oh, we're going to find the next big thing. I think they finally realized, like, no, we need to find people that can find the next big thing and connect with that in that sense. Yeah, I think the labels are finally understanding, because I ain't got to understand too, the last 10 years is probably, and maybe even more, has been the wild, wild west with the music business. They, I mean, they didn't even start counting the digital sales, I think, until Jay-Z's Magna Carta with Samsung deal. So they were still prehistoric for a long time. They just kind of settled in now because the streaming has become the wave, which me personally, I like streaming. I love the way, the direction this is all going, especially for an upstart that's just trying to do their thing. They can, you can start your own thing for little bread and make a lot of headway. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, you had to have a record or you had to have a CD. Now you can have a file. So it's changed a lot, but I'm seeing that it's actually going in a better direction because you can actually do it from the ground up. The playing field is as level as it's ever been. It's hard as ever because everyone's doing it, but it's as level as it's ever been. And it's easier for an artist to say, hey, man, why is my check looking like this? I'm pointing at my streams, right? You know, I'm at 100 million right now. So artists have more leverage than they've ever had, and so do the small labels.
So you kind of opened a can of worms then, because this whole conversation about independent labels interfacing with major labels is one of those super contentious subjects. I mean, I think that's where the term industry plant comes from. You know what I'm saying? And that's why there are all these whisperings of, you know, like a Macklemore not really being a true independent, or you know, the infamous collapse of Funk Volume and, you know, their Warner Brothers situation. So without going way on a tangent, how does Pro Era interface with some of these larger labels to make it work for both sides?
Basically, we just seek distribution. We have the talent, we have producers, we have engineers. We're big on team building and, you know, working close together. We're still pretty small as far as a label is concerned. So it's, it just comes down to, we basically go after distribution at this point. We bring the whole package, we bring the whole album, the videos already in the can. We just show up with the whole package. And so at this point, it's like, we're independent because we're still just doing it ourselves and then just going and getting distribution deal. So it's still indie because all the choices are still on us, and we're still starting the projects ourselves with the money for studio, money for videos, or whatever. So it's more of a distribution thing that we go after nowadays.
Okay, so we briefly covered the independent versus major label divide. Now there's another divide to cover, which is the internet versus the industry, and I think these are all lines that are blurring. But with respect to producers, especially, so for example, I get these all the time. I received a comment on YouTube the other day that read, "Industry dudes don't want beats that everyone online has access to." But that same week, the top 40 station in my city that I actually have a mix show on was playing at least 3 hit singles that started as YouTube beats, including Medicine and Flip the Narrow, who's from, I believe he's from New York, right? Leave Me Alone.
Yep.
And Joey Badass spoke in a couple interviews, I think including the one with Genius, that he searched and found and recorded beats from YouTube.
For sure.
What's been your experience with these publicly available beat catalogs in the music industry today? I'm
not mad at it. I really feel like people that are stuck in the old way of how it used to go for producers with placements and all this stuff, I think it's overrated now. It doesn't mean that it can't happen. I think a lot of people tend to want to exchange things like, okay, CD sales are over, I have to go do the streaming. No, if you can sell CDs, sell them, but doesn't mean don't have streaming. So I feel like this is more the future of it, is what we're seeing, like a BeatStars and these type of things, because it's not like if someone gets a hit and wants the exclusive, it's not like people are always going to do the mixtape version, right? So it's kind of like, really, we're going to get mad because 10 people already rhymed on that beat and now someone bought it exclusive and made a hit with it? Like, nah, that doesn't make any sense. At the end of the day, it's just music, and music's supposed to be spread out. We all have our goals. The money one to me is always a given. We live in this society. You can't function without money. So of course you want your money. I think one thing that's happening that I don't like is people only doing it for money. I think some of the art gets diluted because of that. You know what I'm saying? And that's a little bit like, oh, come on, guys. Like, I get it. I want my money. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't mean I want my art to suffer in any way, or the art itself of hip hop to suffer in any way. I think this is the future, and I think people need to. I tell some of the people from my generation of music business, like, yo, fam, catch the wave or just kind of fall back, because it's not going back to CDs and, the old way of all these huge budgets. And, I remember back in the day, Dr. Dre could take your whole budget for one beat. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure if you want Dr. Dre, yeah, he's going to, he wants 100,000 for a beat. But the point is that this is the new wave. And I actually like it because it's more of a community vibe. I see more people wanting to help each other. And I really love the collab thing on BeatStars off of that, because it's like, nah, let's help each other up, man. It's like people always say to me, damn, Nastee, 10 million, 10 platinums already. Like, oh, you're so humble, It's like, man, because all that tripping, there's no need for that, man. Like, I'm in it for the art, and I'm in it to make beautiful music with my peoples, whoever the peoples are. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the internet spreads it out too, where someone you might have never connected. I just licensed a beat to some dudes in Oklahoma. You know what I mean? Like, just out of nowhere. So I think this is the future, and I think that we are the ones that shape it. And I'm just not mad at the share aspect of all of this. I think that that's a beautiful thing, not a thing to be like, oh, everyone has this beat. Like, really? Everyone has the beat anyway. Like, they're going to do the mixtape version. That's what I always call it. Like, that's the mixtape version. Like, someone got the MP3 and did a freestyle to it. Not mad at that.
Okay, so you mentioned that platforms such as BeatStars you think are the future, and I'm seeing BeatStars grow in terms of numbers, but also in terms of technology. I mean, technology is growing, period, and it's really affecting the music business, right?
Oh, dude.
I'm not gonna say I'm jealous, but you had the chance to pilot the new iOS app. I don't. I use Android, so I didn't get the
Oh,
chance.
word.
So I haven't even seen it
iPhone
yet.
gang, son. iPhone
Yeah,
gang.
yeah. Okay, this interview's over. So what were your impressions of it? This is partially just out of curiosity because I'm
I
waiting
loved
for
it.
it.
I loved it. I love the fact that cats could be on the go, scrolling through beats. It's got the notepads. As we get more into it and looking at the younger generation, that's what they're working with. They're more and more on that than even on a computer. So I think that that's a beautiful thing. I think it's really like makes it easy access for someone like me getting into BeatStars, getting my beats up. I really just see it as a great opportunity for everybody.
Obviously, the technology is going to continue to change the landscape of the music business. You've been in the music business for a while. You've seen things change. You've seen things grow and evolve. What do you think the next 5 years holds for especially in terms of production, with this online production marketplace not going anywhere and only expanding? Where do you see the industry shifting to respond to all of these new demands from producers?
Yeah, I think honestly they're going to be shifting to more where like a BeatStars is almost like an A&R department for production. I think it's these type of sites and the technology is if they want to catch up and be in the waves that are coming now, they need, the major labels especially really need to embrace. And even on my old producer heads, I tell them all, like, embrace this, man. It's actually a great wave. The old way of thinking always has to change. It's like when some of these cats is mad at some of these younger rappers. I'm like, fam, I get it. Some of it's like, there's no bars there or whatever. But at the same time, they said the same thing to us about hip hop in general. When I was a kid, it was like they would tell us it was a fad. And it wasn't even going to make it past 5 years. I would argue in like music class, like, I'm into hip hop. Well, that's not even music. You know what I mean? How is it not music? It has rhythm, it has this, it has that. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like we're moving into the future. Whether you want to move in or not is entirely up to you, but you will get left. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love it. I think like being able to collab, like right now, like we're doing this, we could be collabing on music. Pro Tools has it where I could be working on a session and you're working on the same session. We're making changes and it's almost in it's pretty close to real time, a little bit of latency, but not much. I think all that's beautiful, man. I think that's making the world smaller in a good way, you know what I mean? And making us be more connected to create art. And I think a lot of people sometimes forget about like, yeah, technology can actually really work for us making art.
This really mirrors a conversation I had with Digga. He pretty much agrees with you on that sentiment.
That's my guy.
Yeah, he's a legend. He's experienced the music industry for decades, right? And placements and in the industry trenches, right? You got to sink or swim. So you either learn fast or you just get burned out. So people who are still around, they learn. He put out a book. He educates, and I think what I've noticed is that nowadays the music and the technology make everything accessible, but the business is still the same, and it's still kind of complicated, and the average producer doesn't know it. So how do you think we approach that problem of educating future generations of producers to really make the right moves, make the smart moves when it comes to the music business? Because it's all the same, internet or industry,
right?
Same rules, same laws.
Yeah, for sure. It's up to us, the older generation that's been doing it, and have the understanding to push these guidelines to the youth. A lot of them, it was always like this, that cats didn't understand, but this is the age of information. A lot of people can just, you have a question, you can pretty much get it answered on a computer or on a phone, you know what I mean? So I feel like, it's moving in that direction. So it's just like anything else. It's on the individual at this point to figure that stuff out. If you don't know about royalties and you're trying to be in the music business or publishing, and you're trying to be in this game, it's just like any artist that comes in and doesn't want to read the contract. Like, read your contract, bro. Like, it doesn't mean you're going to understand every line. Doesn't mean, read it and memorize it. But if you sign something and you didn't even read it, I mean, whose fault is that? You know what I mean? Like, you could blame a lawyer, you could blame whoever you want, but did you take the time to check it out? You know what I'm saying? Or at least someone close to you that you're not paying check it out. You know what I'm saying? Like the music business does need to change in the sense of the dog eat dog. I feel like the industry ate itself so much that it fell in 100 years. It didn't even last 100 years. We're already revamping the whole game. Really, the contract stuff still always gets sticky because I mean that's what lawyers are there for, right? They have a job because they write it down in a certain way that sometimes is like, yo, damn, I didn't even know I signed this, and it's like, read your contract. Read a couple books on this stuff. You know, Digger's book is a really good book. You know what I mean? There's an old book back in the day called Hitmen that a lot of people should read. You know, the good thing about the industry the contract stuff is that no, it hasn't changed that much as far as what points are, what publishing is. Obviously, it's changed a little bit with streaming, and I mean they just passed that new act too, so it's moving more into the artist's favor, I feel. But it's up to us. I constantly am telling the younger artists, giving them pointers about the game. Hey man, get yourself a lawyer. Get yourself this. You know, you want a manager that's down for you. You know, we're in the age of 360s, and I'm telling cats all the time, like, yo, it's kind of got to be that way because the label doesn't sell CDs to make money. So we kind of have to be involved in all the things, but still, that doesn't mean don't get a manager for yourself that is going to be having your best interest. Your lawyer is going to have your best interest. You know what I mean? Like you still have to build your own team. So I really feel like it's on the individual to learn, but it's also up to us as the older dudes to not do what the old executives used to do, which I was telling someone the other day, like you could never get a record executive back in the day to tell you how much you actually sold. Whatever worked for their argument is how much you sold. Oh, we're platinum. We're not platinum. Oh, we're at 900,000. Oh, we're at 1.5. It was hard to nail that down because they didn't really want to give up. I mean, even now I go into big meetings. They're showing us analytics that they would never, marketing analytics that were completely off the table as far as the back in the days. They would never tell you demographics. They would never show you. Now they have to, because at this point, how are you going to really sell me on that I should work with you? You know, you got guys going viral with no help from a big company. You know, I mean, there's a lot of big companies behind the scenes for a lot of the viral stuff, but it still doesn't mean that things don't slip through and just go, you know, catch on. So, yeah, I think that it's up to individuals, especially up and coming executives, you know, because I'm telling some cats like, yo, man, that's on you, fam. You trying to be in this game on that level, you better know every aspect. It ain't just about finding hot beats or hot artists. That's the tip of the iceberg for this game. And that's where I think a lot of people get fooled into thinking, you know. And I think a lot of people think that, oh, I got my song on SoundCloud, I'm about to blow. And it's like, no, you got to do a lot of promoting for yourself. You got to do a lot of, you know, tweeting and whatever it is, whatever works. But you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of work no matter what.
Okay, speaking of a lot of work, one more thing added to the list of tasks that you have a caffeine sponsorship. We'll talk about that later. You host, or co-host rather, the 47 Minutes podcast on Tidal with Joey Badass. How did that come about? And, you know, what can musicians and fans learn from tuning in?
When Joey was bringing me onto the label to work as the A&R, it was right when he was getting offered that podcast. And he was like, yo, because I was literally going to do a podcast that I still plan to do in the future that was going to sit down with people that made classics and have them explain the whole process of the classic. Like a good friend of mine is Just Blaze. I was going to, like, he would come in and I'd talk about Blueprint, you know what I mean? Or I'd talk about La Familia album, you know what I mean? So Joey knew that and was like going to be a guest. And then when he got his offer, he was like, yo, do you want to just co-host mine? Like, you know, a lot of the stuff that he talks about is stuff that we discuss in our sessions. We, you know, certain things that are said are from discussions in the studio that I'm in the middle of. And I'm an opinionated dude. So he really was like, yo, let's do something that bridges the gap. That is the old and the new, educating, but also having a discussion between both sides. You know, like when we had Yachty on there, I really saw how he was looking at me and Static like, fam, what are you so mad at? Like, I was a broke college kid that now has, you know, buying my mom a house. And it's like, no, bro, me personally, I'm not even mad at that. I'm just like, yo, careful with the lowering the bar on bars. You know what I'm saying? Like, you kind of indirectly open the door for mediocre bars to be bars. Whereas back in the day, it's like, fam, you can't rap. You know what I mean? Not saying you can't rap, but we're not the shade room.
Yeah, this is why we have to do a part two. That we have a lot to talk about. So on that note, how can people find you? How can they check out your online beat catalog, have this conversation, so forth?
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find. I'm online as at Nastee Loves You on all my socials on BeatStars. It's NASTEELUVZYOU, and pretty easy to get at, man. You know, you can DM. I always answer if I mean, I get a lot, so might slip through the cracks, but for the most part, pretty easy to get at. I stay accessible on purpose. I stay humble. I stay working. You know, even today, as soon as I get off of here, I got a mix to do, a rough mix to do to send to somebody, and then I'm bouncing tracks all day. So yeah, find me, man. I'm down. Let's work.
All right, brother. Appreciate you amid all of your chaos. Appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us, sharing the wisdom, sharing the knowledge.
You too, brother. Peace.